Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another podcast episode in your Perseverance Under Pressure podcast. This is episode 7, and we are going to talk about clarity versus confusion in today's podcast episode. Now, we all have an understanding of what clarity means or confusion means, but we're going to look at it from a context with mental, with physical, with emotional, and understanding how these pieces all come into play when it's pertaining to the healing process, whether that's internal healing of the mind, body, spirit, or it comes into the process of achieving your goals, your dreams, right? So when you start a business, one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and there's still going to be mistakes that are made, but when you start a business, let's look at a business endeavor first, okay? So when I started my personal training business, I did not have clarity on any of the systems or any of the ideas for clear, decisive clientele. I wanted to just train anybody. If you were an athlete, I could train you. If you were older general population, I could train you. If you had injuries and issues, I could train you. So I just wanted to build my business. I wanted to build a company. I wanted to train people. I didn't have a clear direction or a focused clarity on a target audience. Now, I know this is something that everybody talks about and it sounds simple, but it's really not that simple, because when you're new to doing something, it becomes very challenging to almost think about restricting in order to get more, right? But there was a saying that we had in professional wrestling, and I do use this in life, I use this in therapy, I use this in all aspects. Less is more. And what that meant from a wrestling perspective was, if we're on TV, if somebody's in the crowd, if they're watching our storytelling, our performance in the ring, the more that we do, it might look fancy, it might look cool, but it's lost among most people because you're going so quickly from thing to thing to thing to thing that you don't have the ability for each move to make an impact, for that to really resonate and sit with somebody. So there was the saying, less is more. If we can do less, we can get more out of the reactions. We can get more out of the story. We can sell the movement or the dialogue longer. It takes us into a deeper connection with the crowd versus just having an acrobatic match that looks fun like a circus, right? So when you're starting a business or you're shooting for your goals, your dreams, you have to have some level of direction, which means clarity. It doesn't mean just try to walk 1,000 different paths, because you're going to end up nowhere very quickly. So when you have confusion, it means you might be trying to focus on way too many things and you don't know what's working, what's not working. You're just spreading yourself really thin. And then again, you need to develop the clarity of which direction to apply your focus. Where and how are you going to climb that mountain? What path is going to take you more so towards the direction you want to go? And are you doing the necessary things along that path, right? So when it comes to healing, as we look at the SRT therapy approach, as we look at the nervous system based approach, there's a ton of other systems that exist within our body, okay? But one of the biggest systems is our nervous system. Now, if we use that in terms of discovering or defining clarity, most people run from their traumas, or they store and hide their traumas in the closet because they don't want to face it, they don't want to rehash it, they don't want to touch it, they don't want to feel it again, so they've buried it away, they've pushed it into their closet. When you do that, there's no clarity on how those traumas have affected you. There's no clarity on which direction to go to find more healing, because you're not aware of the behavioral patterns or the programming that's been taking place. So there's a confusion that most people find they have when it comes to the healing process. And a lot of it comes from seeking external help from other therapists, other professionals, while the majority of the healing, not fixing mechanical issues, not resetting broken bones, not, massaging out muscle knots, but the healing comes from internal, and understanding the belief system and the operating systems of the nervous system, and just how much you may have been holding on to that is also affecting the physical realms of your muscular tension, of your deviations in skeletal posture because of the muscle tension or the fascial restrictions. And so when we look at clarity from the standpoint of healing, the focus needs to be done internally. It needs to be done as a homework exercise for you personally. If you're going to a therapist and they're giving you the mechanical stuff, or we're doing some of the emotional stuff and we're bringing certain things to the surface, the homework is you continuing to do the internal work, the meditation work, the sitting in silence and stillness work, the learning how to unpack some of these traumas that you may have been holding on to that haven't been the best thing for you, or these traumas and these energetic emotional slivers that have affected your programming, affected the way you perceive the world, perceive other people, perceive and interpret situations. This is all a huge part of the programming that your brain goes through, and your brain is the central nervous system. And so when clarity comes into focus, you have a much better understanding of what's working, what's not working, what we need to maybe do first, what we need to push back on the back burner. Maybe we're focused on certain things that aren't the best for us right now, and we need to bring our attention over to this side, right? So becoming more clear involves getting rid of the confusion, getting rid of the fog, or the too many paths, the too many different directions. So with that, it takes us into ourselves. It takes us into sitting in some stillness, unplugging from your tech, from your TV, from your Netflix, from your social medias, unplugging from the family, unplugging from the chaos of other people, other energy, and just allowing yourself to be still with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your emotions, with your mind, which you will find is always trying to manipulate and control. And so you have to become clear in the mind in order to become clear in the body, in order to release confusion. And remember, less is more. So we're not trying to do 1,000 things. Most people are already doing 1,000 things. They're distracting themselves from the silence or from the stillness. So when we say less is more, when it comes to the healing component, we're not trying to find 1,000 different solutions. We're trying to sit with our internal selves, observe what traumas we may have been stored, what belief systems we may be operating from, and then the physical external approaches, whether it's massage or chiro or physical therapy or stretch therapy or acupuncture, that's going to be a guide and an assistance once we have more clarity for the internal components that need to be either shifted or released or whatever it looks like. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. When we're looking at clarity, right, you have a clear mind, or if it's in business, you have a clear vision of where you want to go, how you want to get there, what you need to do to get there, and then executing on that clarity. If there's confusion, you're going to feel like you're running in a circle. You're going to feel like, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this. None of this is working. And I see that all the time in the therapy realm. I see people that come to me from physical therapists, from massage therapists, from chiros, and they're chasing all different mechanical pieces. But what the biggest piece is usually that I see, because that's what I work with from the SRT deeper layers, is the emotional and energetic traumas, is the rape, is the abuse, is the feelings of invalidation, of unacceptance, of suffering, of loneliness, of depression. All of these things resonate from within us. So if you're chasing the physical pieces, that's only one part of it. And that's where the clarity has to come into play. Maybe some of the physical stuff you're doing isn't in the right direction at that moment in time. But if you have confusion and you don't have clarity, you're not going to know which direction or which modality or which arena you need to be focused on. So same idea for business, guys. You need to have a clear vision, the idea and the goal of where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and then consistency in what you're doing. So keep that in mind. That is our discussion for today. The clarity versus confusion. And one of the biggest things I had to realize, whether it's for this business with SRT therapy, it's this podcast, right? So my vision and clarity for the podcast is every week we talk about a different mental feeling or emotion or thought. So we have dreams, we have perseverance, we have pressure, we have clarity, we've had discipline, right? So each episode is going to bring to you a different level of insight, but that is the clarity that I had for this podcast. It's not me just coming on here to talk about random stories about my past, or when we eventually have other people come on talk about random stories about their past. There's a system and there's a clear vision for what this is to share or supposed to be sharing. So same thing with this podcast. There has to be clarity in what the vision looks like. With my SRT company, there's clarity in what the education company looks like, how we grow that, how we spread the awareness, how we share the healing. When I was wrestling, there had to be clear, decisive actions and clarity of how I was going to get my foot in the door for WWE. I didn't want to just continue to be an independent wrestler and wrestling in front of, 50 people at a high school gym or a KFC or Knights of Columbus, not the restaurant, KFC. But there had to be some clarity. I had to have a clear vision, and then I had to have, like we talked about, the sacrifices. Okay, I have to be willing to give this up to move up the ladder. This is where I'm going. So all of these pieces that we're talking about work together. You have to have clarity in order to have direction. You have to have discipline in order to have consistency. You have to have perseverance. under pressure, so you have to be able to have your discipline in order to persevere. They all work together. It's no different than like our body, our muscles, our bones, our fascia, our circulatory system, nervous system, immune system, cardiovascular. Everything has to work together. So we're going to just break it down piece by piece and give you some different insights each episode so that you have a better idea of maybe you have good discipline, but you lack clarity. And so you're disciplined in confusion. Or maybe you have good clarity, but you lack your discipline, or you lack your perseverance because you don't have habits that have been built off of discipline or willpower. So thanks for watching, guys. This was episode 7 in your Perseverance Under Pressure podcast. As always, if you can hit that like, hit that sub button, hit the notification bell. We'd love to see you, continue seeing you. And please leave any comments if you have any comments, or share some part of your story. Would love to hear from you guys. Or if you want me to address anything in upcoming episodes, also, please leave some comments. Have a great rest of your week, guys, and we'll see you next Monday.